Today I'm going to show you exactly how the cheapest Porsche 911 Carrera Coupe in the United States drives. If you've been watching my channel, if you're a regular subscriber, you probably already know this is the cheapest Porsche 911 Carrera Coupe with a clean title and under 100,000 miles in the United States. And there's a C7 Corvette. If you watched my last video, you know that it had a bit of a coolant leak. I think I fixed it with a radiator cap, and I need to take a drive. Today I'm also going to play basketball with one of my brother-in-laws, so I figured perfect time to try out the coolant cap, make sure that that fix works, and also a great time to share with you exactly how it drives. I had one little clip in an earlier video that showed a little bit of how it drove, but not a real full review. So how does it drive? I think the best thing for me to be able to compare it to would be my previous Porsche, my Porsche 986 Boxster. Now the first thing is going to be obvious. This car is equipped with a Tiptronic transmission. And my Boxster, as well as the Porsches that I had before that, were all manual cars. So I'll get a little more into the Tiptronic versus manual later in the video, but let's talk about some of the dynamics that are just a little bit different. So one of the big things that I've noticed is traction. The Boxster had a decent amount of traction, but the 911 takes that up a notch. I mean, you got all that weight hanging out the rear end, and it just really provides a lot of traction on the drive wheels. And with all that traction, it really does show off the extra power. There is almost 100 more horsepower in this Porsche. And it shows. So you can get around traffic, no problem. In my Boxster, you used to have to kind of plan things a little bit. You do a little bit here in the 911 because a lot of that power is at the top end, which is similar to the Boxster. But since I had the first generation 99 Boxster, this is a 99 911, so it's kind of apples to apples as far as it's the same model year. Now inside, it looks a lot the same. There's a couple little tiny things. This is in plastic. Over here on the door card, there's a little less plastic, but it's not a huge difference. But I will say, even with all that extra power, there is one thing that the Boxster did way better. At least I felt more confident in the Boxster when I was doing it, and that was taking corners. With the 911, while it's very good, it's planted in the corners. There is a sense in the back of your mind that if you make one little mistake, if you lift off the throttle, which everyone that owns a 911 will tell you, don't do that mid-corner. But if you lift off the throttle, that's it. You're toast. You potentially will have the back side of your car in front of you. With the Boxster, it didn't really get upset with things like that. It was just so balanced. Do you think the driving experience in the Boxster it's just a lot of fun? And when you consider that those cars are only around $5,000 for a decent one, where a really cheap 911 is still closer to $15,000, that's a lot of car for the money. So anyone that knocks Boxsters that says, well, you should have bought a 911, well, there are reasons to buy a Boxster. And I had mine for over 6 years. It was great. But there are still things about this 911 that you didn't have with the Boxster. For instance, this one has rear seats. I mean, you just can't get that in a Boxster or a Cayman. This one's also a hard top. So yes, you can't have the wind in the hair feeling, but you can definitely feel a little less flex. Boxster wasn't so noticeable about flex, but there is a little less in this one. But I have 3 kids. They're all fairly young. My oldest is 12. My boys, because I could only seat one in the Boxster, they would always kind of fight over who would get to go, and everyone was always disappointed. The 911, we don't have that anymore. Yes, those seats aren't very big, but my kids are skinny. I used to be skinny too. I don't know what happened. That's why I'm playing basketball, to try to lose it all. In fact, my middle child loves the back seat so much that there have been times when it's just been he and I, and he still sits in the back. In fact, he sits right behind me in the back. If you've seen The Office, there's an episode where Dwight sits right behind Jim because the safest place in the car is behind the driver. Driver's natural instincts are to protect himself, right? And so he did that exact same thing, and that's all I could think about was my middle child is Dwight, apparently. One reason I got a 99 911, similar to my 99 Boxster, is the analog feel. The 996 in general, but especially the earlier cars, the early cars have the cable-driven throttle body, not a lot of nanny things. It's starting to get that, but I have traction control. But that's it. There's not things like wizardry like torque vectoring and dual clutch gearboxes. All these things in a lot of ways have made the car better. They also make it a little less involved, and this one has, even with the Tiptronic transmission, it still has an analog feel. The steering's hydraulic, it's not electric. It may not be as sharp, but you get more feel in the wheel. And you get that with 996, a little bit lesser of a degree than 997, but that still provides a lot more analog than, say, a 991, definitely more than a 992. And at the price point, I mean, it's hard to get a car with this kind of feel. That's still a 911. But there's one reason to go for a 996 or a 997 over, say, a 993, which 993s are gorgeous cars. If you haven't driven an air-cooled 911, I mean, the sound, the experience is great. The way that they hinge the pedals is a lot like the Volkswagen. So I've had bugs in the past, and it's a similar feel as far as the pedals being all hinged from the floor, like the clutch and the brake. But once you get used to all that, they drive great. But the one thing they really, really don't do well is air conditioning. The beautiful thing about the water-cooled 911s, and the same can be said for like a Boxster, is once you get a water-cooled flat six, air conditioner works really well. And I live in a climate that sometimes gets very hot. We have multiple days over 100, and air conditioning is a big deal. Well, I've got more thoughts about the 911 to share, but we're here to play basketball right now. I'm gonna go shoot some hoops, and then we'll see how that goes. When you started this, you probably didn't realize you were going to watch an exercise video, but this is not fake sweat. This is the real thing. My brother-in-law that I played with, he's about 15 years younger than I am. I only lost to him by 2 points, so I'm good at the three-point shot. That's the only reason. But after playing basketball, it's a perfect time to talk about the Tiptronic transmission. Because when I used to play, and I had the Boxster, you know, basketball is hard on your knees. In fact, I have knee issues. So I probably shouldn't be playing basketball so much, but I'm trying to lose weight. And this car has an early Tiptronic. The later Tiptronics had more performance shift patterns. There's like 250 in the later that are sourced from a Mercedes-Benz. But the original 911 Tiptronic S that came with the 996 only had 5 shift patterns. So it does really well on the track. If you're going all out, it's pretty good then. But if you're kind of driving it halfway, it's hit or miss. However, there's one way around that, and that's manual mode. Of course, we're coming into a dust cloud. Great. This is the worst thing when you've washed your car. Okay, we just gotta go through it. Ow, my car's dirty. That's the bad thing about living in the country is, yeah, that stuff happens. So if you have knee issues, a Tiptronic is a great option. It does give the car more of a GT feel. So 911s, the newer 911s have gotten more of a GT feel. The 996 still has a pretty analog feel. 997 continues that, kind of has smaller sports car feel. But the 997 was kind of the start of them getting a little bigger. Well, actually 996 really started, but it's not much bigger than a 993. But now once you get to the 991, there's some major differences in the size. So if you don't mind a GT car feel, if you want a strict sports car feel, you want the fastest 0 to 60 acceleration, on the track, you want the fastest possible. Now, you have to be a very good driver with a manual. But if you want the best possible performance, yeah, get the manual in these early cars. The Tiptronic is slower. That's all it is. However, on the track, for an average driver, you're probably going to be roughly the same. And the one nice thing is 0 to 60 in this car, as tested by Car and Driver back in 1999, is 5.6 seconds, which for a car from 99 is not a bad 0 to 60 time. It's plenty to keep up with modern traffic and to feel really quick. And that 5.6 seconds is easily duplicated by pretty much any driver because you don't have to do any of the dropping the clutch, all that kind of stuff. You put it in manual, put it down into first. You don't even have to shift because it will auto shift for you if you don't mind redlining it. Now the Tiptronic buttons on the steering wheel, they're a little funky. I mean, it's kind of nice that you can get to it all with one hand, but paddle shifters are a lot better. But even the PDK, which is a much faster transmission, I drove a 991 with a PDK and a 911S when they first came out, and it had the early PDK with no paddles. It had the back and forth little rockers. It wasn't until later that you could get proper paddle shifters. So Porsche's kind of fought the paddle shifter craze for a while. However, you can upgrade this car. There's a modification, which I'll probably do eventually, that will add paddle shifters. It's a couple $100. You grab them from a Mercedes-Benz, so they're not bad quality. So a manual gives you a little bit more of an engaged feel. This is great for cruising, and I won't be using this for my daily driver, so cruising is a good thing for me. Got a lot of traffic around here, and my knees are not what they used to be. After playing basketball, my knees are killing me right now. So, you know, it's one of those things where not having to shift, not having to work the clutch pedal, especially in traffic, which I'm not really in traffic right now, but stop signs, things of that nature. You know, not having to do that makes it a lot easier. Now, talking about the Tiptronic versus the PDK, it's a little bit different to drive a Tiptronic car than a PDK car. PDK, even in automatic mode on a track or pretty much anywhere, it's pretty much reading your mind. It's driving. Most of the time it'll get you in just the right gear for whatever situation. It's pretty advanced, especially the newer PDK versus the original. The big thing for the PDK is, for instance, in the newest 992, which just released the manual transmission, you lose, depending on what model you get, you lose about half a second 0 to 60 time, which isn't that necessarily a big deal because you're buying it partly for the experience, not necessarily for outright performance. And in some models, you can lose 0.7 of a second in a manual. It's opposite of what it was when the Tiptronic was around, where you'd lose about half to 0.6 or so seconds by going for a Tiptronic. One thing that happens in the Tiptronic if you're in manual mode is you'll see yourself upshift or downshift, and it doesn't happen right away. Once you get used to it, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you see a corner coming up and you know I need to be in, you know, say third gear and I'm in fourth gear, you can downshift, and when the car knows it can, it will downshift for you. And it's pretty good about not doing it in a corner. You do want to do it ahead of the corner because it could shift in the mid corner. It doesn't happen too often, but it could, and you don't want that. That could disrupt the balance and you end up seeing the engine go in the wrong direction. But with the PDK, I mean, it's faster than you could possibly shift. So when you ask for a shift, it's just there because it's already got the next gear ready. But there's enough power, not so much power, based on today's standards, this isn't a ton of power, but there's enough power just to have fun in this car and to drive sporty. Even with the Tiptronic, you can get sporty driving. And it does have a couple little tricks up its sleeves, like if you're about to pass and you punch a little harder on the gas, you don't have to floor, you just kind of punch a little harder, it'll automatically downshift up to 2 gears to get you a higher rev so that you can pass people. However, I find myself doing manual mode instead. So yeah, Tiptronic is not that bad. It just changes the feel a little bit. But if you have knee issues, it's, you know, it gets a bad rap just because it doesn't sound as cool to not shift yourself. It's bumpy. These back roads, sometimes they're not as well paved as some of the other roads, but it is quite a beautiful scenery. So an early Porsche 996 Even if it's Tiptronic, you save a little bit of money, but manual as well. They're just such a value for what you get, and they drive. They're just, the feeling you get when you drive it is incredible. It's kind of the perfect starter 911. I mean, the prices are cheap. I don't know if I've ever wanted to give this one away. I don't know. I've driven other newer, nicer 911s in that the interior is nicer. They have a little more power. But I don't know if you get enough extra from that to really warrant the amount more money that you're going to spend for one of the newer 911s. Yeah, the PDK, if you go for the semi-automatic, is better, but the amount of fun that you're going to have in this is going to be about the same. So I think the 996 is pretty much right now the best deal in the sports car market. And I know that's saying a lot because the Boxster is also a phenomenal deal. The C5 Corvette is a great deal. But I think the 996 right now is probably the best bargain for what you get. Hey, and I went through a whole video without mentioning the IMS bearing. Now I mentioned it. So thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed watching what it's like to actually drive a 996 and with the Tiptronic, because I know there aren't a ton of videos that really tell you anything about the Tiptronic. If you like the video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. You know, that really helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you like this format, did a couple little things. It's a little bit of a vlog-ish format, but still a review. Comment down below and let me know if you'd like me to do more videos like this, or if I should go back to just talking about cars that are inexpensive, which is what 9/10 of my videos are. Also, if you haven't already subscribed, what are you waiting for? You made it to the end of this video, and we'd love to have you as a subscriber. And remember, with every subscription, a donation will be made in your name to the Buy a Middle-Aged Man a 911 Fund. His name's David, and that car will be in my garage, right next to the cheapest Porsche 911 Carrera Coupe in the United States. And if you're a regular viewer, thanks so much for watching. You guys really do make all of this possible and fun. And one more thing, normally I tell you to get out there and drive, and I am going to tell you that. But one more thing, I played basketball with one of my brother-in-laws. All my brother-in-laws, they have a brand new YouTube channel. It's not about cars or anything, but you know, you might find it entertaining, and at least let them know how to improve if you don't like it. I know you all do that for me. So I'll put a link to that in the description if you want to. He's who I played basketball with today, one of the three brother-in-laws. It's brand new, so any traction will help them. Now get out there and drive. If you watched my last video, then you know that the cheapest Porsche 911 Carrera had coolant issues. So for those waiting on an update, it looks like it's fixed. I changed that cap and it appears to fix it. So I just wanted to add a quick update that it looks like the cap fixed the issue. Good thing this isn't smell-o-vision, because I need to take a shower right away. This is not fun. I'll probably use some leather cleaner on my car to get this all sweat gone.